Today, the head of Texas DPS revealed new details about the law enforcement response to the
What's up, my people? What's going on? We got like another 10 seconds. We're gonna go ahead and get this started. How is everybody tonight? Everybody doing good? Having a good night? Feeling good about things? I need to adjust my camera really quickly. Woot woot. Come here, beasties. I'm doing great. That's great. What's up, Northern? What's up, Tarkin? What's up, my Austrian brother from another mother, Tobias? Good to see you. I'm hopping in the on-stream voice chat. So, all right, there we go. It's been insane. It's been an insane day, man. It's been an insane day. So, glad everybody's doing good. Welcome to the Cardboard Castle, guys. This is episode 21 or 22. I put 21. We're going to go with it. That's where we're at. We have some crazy shit to talk about. Yeah, Tarkin, you're blue. You're blue. We're going to configure the video real quick. And then click on that configure video. And we're going to tilt downward. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. Beautiful. You guys seeing the magic happen as it happens. As it happens. So, guys, we have a great show today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Texas shooting and some crazy shit that's going on. There was a hearing in Texas, and some stuff came out. And let's just say that everything is not what it seems. So, guys, as we get into it, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you get notified every time that we come on. Make sure you hit the notification bell and select all. And like this, it helps the algorithm, helps me out. So, today, in this hearing that they had in Texas about the Uvalde school shooting, seems the police chief probably lied about some shit, as he was quoted saying that he was hoping as he tried every key. Turns out that the door only locks from the outside, and the door was unlocked. Also, there's some other crazy shit too. Wait, what's going on? Oh, yeah, what's up, Forcell? By the way, guys, you guys can check out our Discord by hitting the ! Discord. And it will give you a great link to our Discord. We just redid it. We're working on some things, but it's making it happen, rapping captain. So some other crazy stuff that's coming out. They stopped multiple people from going in. They also said that they didn't have the entry equipment to enter into the door, but it turns out that they had the pry bars necessary. 2 different officers did. During that period to get into the classrooms, and that they were just told to stand down. One police officer, literally, his wife, one of the officer's wives was the teacher that was in the classroom, and he had to decide whether to follow orders or barge in and save his wife. His wife died. And one of the 2 teachers who died on the way to the hospital. Imagine if they could have just been a little earlier. Even if it took 14 minutes to get those keys, what happened to the other 77? They waited a total of 96 minutes, guys. An hour and 36 minutes. Hour and 36 minutes. What's this about Lucas livestream? What's going on? Someone fill me in. Yeah, they had weapons, full body armor, and blast shields, and that's what we're going to get into here in just a moment. So, the craziness around this is it's just fucking nuts, man. So here we go. We're going to go and we're going to grab up our Texas Tribune. here, and we're going to go ahead and we'll transition on over. Welcome. We're transitioned over to the screen. So, guys, I want you to see this. This was literally what they showed up with. Shields, they had the weapons, the body armor necessary, and they were just staring down a hallway. It's insanity. So they literally and it turns out that if there's kids in there, we need to go in. Officers in Uvalde were ready with guns, shields, and tools, but not clear orders. Law enforcement transcripts and footage of federal and state investigators are examining after the May 24th tragedy. The officers in the hallway of Robb Elementary, man, we're trying to get inside of classrooms 111 and 112. The doors were not locked. An officer had gotten a call from his wife, a teacher, and she told him she was bleeding to death, that she had been shot and she was bleeding to death, and he had to sit there on the phone while being told to wait, talking to his wife as she took her last breaths as she was bleeding out. So, well, they're not cowards. Guys, it could have been. The cops are not at fault. I believe they should have disobeyed orders as a group, okay? But the problem is that if one of them would have went rogue, or a few of them, and things went south and they had been told to stand down, they would be responsible and culpable for negligent homicide, which is 2.5 to 4 years in prison minimum in Texas. Okay? I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but prison is not nice to cops. Just to be real. It is what it is. Again, if they would have disobeyed orders, they needed to do it as a group. I believe that they are at fault for not stepping up. But they could have been held, if things went wrong, they could have been culpable for murder. But I also believe that the police chief should be charged as an accessory to murder. And maybe I'm a little extreme there, but I believe he should be charged as an accessory to murder. They heard the gunshots. They were able to respond. And for some reason, it took an off-duty officer with a shotgun he borrowed from a barber to go in and take out the shooter. Why is that? They were standing by while kids were getting fucking diced and their brains blown out. Yeah. Well, they had grounds to go in. When they heard gunshots, they had clear grounds to go in. I don't know why they followed those orders. They weren't legible. But the thing is that their leadership, the sergeants and the corporals that were there, should have stepped up to the plate and said, no, we're going in. And then the regular beat cops would have followed them, and then it would have only been them that were on the line. But they didn't do that. They didn't risk their jobs. They were so weak. What it is a weak man got into position of power and made weak decisions trying to preserve his pension. And instead of police protecting the people, instead, they're protecting themselves and protecting their jobs and protecting their ass. And this goes back to what we talked about when I brought Matt on, the lawyer, when we were talking about the Supreme Court decision that somehow police do not have a responsibility to protect individuals. They have no responsibility to protect you, so cops are covered. And you're getting more and more of these people as they make it more difficult. And we've been shouting to defund the police, and police are an ACAB and all this bullshit. All cops are bastards and all that. We've pushed the good cops out. The people just don't want to do this shit anymore. And the people who do are all activists or just looking for an easy pension in the state, in the really good state benefits. And it's fucking sad. It's fucking sad. It's just fucking sad. I'm so mad about this. I'm so mad. No, there are weak men. There are weak men. Absolutely. Good times make weak men. Hard times make hard men. Hard times make strong men. It's a saying. It actually is from an Austrian philosopher, believe it or not. Yeah. Crowder was talking about it today, but it came out. What's a weak man? Weak men are men who don't stand up for what it is to be men, right? Accept the narrative that it is okay for another man to okay, for example, weak men, cucks. This idea of polyamory and that you're supposed to be okay with some other dude banging your chick because that's how she identifies with sexually. That's weak men. Weak men. Men who are not willing to make the hard decisions and do the hard things that are required of them because they're too scared of losing their job or their political impact or because their political motives for some reason don't allow them to feel that they need to do things. Sometimes men need to bring violence upon other men. It is just the nature of the way things are. This is an instance of where violent men needed to bring violence upon another person, and a weak man who was not willing and was not capable of those acts or ordering those acts stood in the way and children got slaughtered. That is weakness. We can agree to disagree. Children died, 21 of them. Grade schoolers, 7-year-olds. Because a weak man made weak decisions to try to preserve his own ass. And this is the fault of the police unions and qualified immunity and all these things that enable them to just not do anything and never be held accountable. We need to hold our police accountable. I back the blue all the time, but there are bad police. There are racist police. There are police that do bad things. And this instance is a police chief who somehow... No, he was weak. His selfishness was a form of weakness. Selfishness, these traits, selfishness, political self-preservation, in the face of children being slaughtered, that is weak. You are a weak man. If you are too weak to put your own self at risk for the benefit of children, that is weakness. I will go to prison any day of my life to save my children and to save my family. I will go to prison any day of the week to defend your children. Period. And any man who chooses his own self-preservation and political preservation over children's lives is a weak man. Period. Those traits that you named are weakness. Selfishness is a weakness. Incompetence is a weakness. Weak. That's what it means. It's a strong word, and I'm purposely using it. And he lied about it afterwards, which means he didn't even want to be held accountable for the decisions he made. Weak. Weakness. Period. He defended talking about waiting for keys and unable to break down doors when they were. So I'm not going to get heavily into this. So we can talk about the saying, but the saying is that this. All right. It's very simple, and I'll put it in chat for you. All right. This is the saying, roughly translated. Tough times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create tough times. The inability to stand up against the mob for what's right, the inability to stand up for your personal beliefs in the face of adversity, the inability to deal with adversity, the inability to be chivalrous, the inability to say that, no, it's not toxically masculine if a man goes up and smacks your wife on the ass in public in front of you and then looks you dead in the face, that you don't punch him in the face. Yeah, I think that's weak. Men need to be men for a reason. There is a line and a boundary in it, and those things are created because people fear consequences. And as more and more people don't fear consequences, our society becomes more and more decadent. And more violent and vile and demented. And the dementation of our society can be seen in school shootings like this. Period. Hate me if you don't. Hate me for that opinion. That's my opinion. That's where I sit. He's sitting here defending not confronting the gunman. He lied that the door was locked. It wasn't locked. Then he changed it to, we didn't try it. We didn't know. I'm sorry. That's just is what it is. The chief of police of the Uvalde School District spent more than an hour in the hallway. He called for tactical gear, a sniper, and keys to get inside, holding back the doors for 40 minutes. There were 19 police officers with vests, AR-15s, and ballistic shields. There's no reason he shouldn't have went in. So that's just where I sit with it, man. This is insane. This is insanity. We need to hold the police accountable. And we can't. We can't. And there is a reason why. Because some of these police are protected by the police organizations and by the unions. We need to pay police based on performance. We need to have performance, not interactions, right? Where stopping a rape is less profitable or less performant for a cop than writing 8 tickets, right? And we need to fix the issue where the police are not required to protect you. We need to make them do the protect part of protect and serve. And serving your fellow man is an admirable thing. I think it's kind of in the Bible somewhere, like toward the back, just saying, a little bit. And yeah, I heard Steven Crowder talked about this. I don't think they'll make up. I don't know. I don't think they'll make up cases. What's up, Jay? Welcome, man. Our brothers from Australia. Yeah, I've made it very clear that I'm heavily Christian, and I believe that that service is a great thing no matter what, but it's also something heavily reinforced in service unto your fellow man. In the Bible, I mean, there's a reason why it's in every religion. Service to your fellow man is heavily emphasized in the Quran, in the Bible, in the Torah, in Buddhism. It's a constant for a reason. What's up, Luna? Good to see you, hon. Great to see you back. Everybody's here, man. I'm feeling good. Feeling good. Hey, Tobias, you're welcome to come in here and debate me, man, or have a conversation with me. I welcome it. I'm in Discord, broski, in voice chats. Woot woot woot. But yeah, man. I mean, this is just insanity. Okay, so let's talk about sexism in the Bible, right? If you want to have this conversation, I'll gladly explain how the Bible isn't sexist. It's a different time. We've transformed societally, but there's no doctrine in the Bible that like you had to pay for your wife or that your wife couldn't choose you. That was a societal thing. That's not a biblical thing. Women shouldn't be teaching men in the church. That's Timothy 2, 2nd chapter, verse 13, I think. because men are in a position of the head of the household, but men are supposed to take into account their wives equally. It says, "For do not pray or exclude your wife from the governing of the household, but do so in private and not in public." I mean, that's a thing. That's not sexist, though. Listen, I'll put it this way: a lot of times we talk about equality, and I believe equality is the ability to choose what you want. If a woman doesn't want to do those things, that's totally her right. Right? I don't think it's sexist to say that living a Christian life is sexist. If a woman chooses to live that way, that's not sexist. It's a choice. Just like it's not racist that I don't want to date. I don't find black women attractive. I just don't. Right? Not my cup of tea. That doesn't make me racist. That's a personal preference. That's a life preference. That's a sexual preference, right? Exactly, Tarkin. So that doesn't make me racist, does it? Just like me not wanting to date a trans woman doesn't make me transphobic. It just means I'm not attracted to people who identify as women who have dicks. Doesn't make me transphobic, right? Just because I don't want to share my wife with someone, though she may want that, doesn't mean that I'm sexist. Like you have to these terms are over broadly used. I'd like you to show me in the New Testament where the New Testament is overtly sexist. I'll give you time. You're welcome to. Well, I will gladly debate you on this any day of the week. Any day of the week. New Testament, by the way. So we can talk about Ephesians or Colossians, right? Where we talk about submissive wives. This is the only argument that's ever made. We're going totally off subject here, but we can have the conversation about Christianity, and then we'll move on. And be subject to one another. That's a commonly part that's not coming. It says be subject to one another. Right? In the fear of Christ. Be subject to one another. Verse 21 is very important when you're looking at Ephesians 5. Oh yeah, I know, Tarkin. So I think we had this conversation when we first talked. Like I was in seminary, right? Um, and talking about how men were meant to fulfill the role of the pastor, right? Women were to lead women, but women were not to lead men, and men were to lead the church. That in and of itself is not a sexist belief. That is the structure of the church. If people choose not to participate in that, that's their choice. Okay, and I just talked about Timothy 2:12. I quoted that. Okay, so let's talk about what that means. So let's talk about Timothy 2:12, and then we're going to hop off of this. But we're going to talk about Timothy 2:12, and we're going to talk about what this means uh, in the bigger part of it. We're not going to use Wikipedia. We're going to use the English Standard Version because I am a reform. I believe in the Reformation, and so we're going to look at this. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. So that doesn't mean she's to remain quiet entirely. There's a whole part around this. So let's actually bring up 1 Timothy 2 and look at the entirety of the part of it, because people like to take this out of context. Now we can use the NIV, we can use the King James Version, or we can use the ESV. And we'll look at 2 through 1 through 15. Let's use the ESV to keep it. First of all, then I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of God our Savior, who desires all people to be saved and to come to knowledge of the truth. For there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ, who gave himself as ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time. For this I was appointed as a preacher and apostle, a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and truth. I desire then that in every place the men should pray, lifting holy hands without anger or quarreling. Okay, so it's talking about men and their interactions amongst themselves and amongst each other. Context is important. It's talking about how men within the church should interact with each other and how they should come forward without quarrel. Okay, and then they'll go into talking about modesty and self-control in dealing with each other as men. Okay, this is how men are supposed to interact with each other in the church. This is talking about men congregating, and that a woman should not be preaching unto the men, but should stay quiet when men are interacting with each other. That men should interact with each other. Women should interact with each other. Men lead the church, but women can lead other women. But their place is not to come into men interacting with each other inside of the church. And this verse is specifically about how men are supposed to interact and deal with each other within the church, within the congregation. And when you look at that, it's saying that a woman should not intercede between the quarrels, between the interactions or intercessions of men. That's all it is. It's not saying that a woman needs to be quiet. You'll find no church that I'm aware of that follows a common doctrine, such as the Reformation or, oh my God, why can't I think of it? There's another one. It's basically, there's two main branches that I talked about before that, or Arminianism, right? So Reformation or Arminianism, right? Those are the main two branches of how the Bible was broke up. Neither one of them will you find where they're saying that women should be absolutely silent in the church. So it says, likewise also that women should adorn themselves in a respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair or gold pearls or costly attire, but what is proper for a woman to profess godliness with good works. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach and exercise, for rather be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue with faithful, loveliness, and holiness. There's also inside of Mark and Matthew where they talk about that a man is equivalent to his wife, right? And that a man should never separate or keep himself separate or deny his wife, right? So, anyways. Exactly. How is that sexist? That's a structure. So men lead the church. How is men leading the church sexist? Or is that a religious belief? Do you know how to separate the two? We can. You brought up, religious sexism, and so I'm making a point. How is saying that the structure of the church, that men are supposed to lead the church, how is that sexist? Is it exclusionary? Absolutely. But is it sexist? Is it saying that a woman is not equivalent to a man? Or is it just saying that there's a job that women are not allowed to do within a religious structure? And how do you do that in correlation? Women can lead other women within the church. But anyways, we'll move on. When you can answer that question for me, let me know, and we'll have a great long discussion on it. But yeah, back to the subject at hand. The whole thing I was talking about was service. And we have to get back to it where the police serve the people and they protect the people. Okay? How is that sexist? So let's talk about what sexist means. Let's have this conversation. We need this conversation has to happen at some point. showing prejudice, stereotyping, discriminating against women on the basis of sex. So are they being prejudiced towards them? No. They're not showing them a prejudice. They're not denying them a right. Are they stereotyping them? They're not fitting them into a stereotype. That's not happening. Are they discriminating against them? They're not withholding from them any right or food or anything else. How's it discriminatory? How's it discriminatory to say that in the structure of this church, these positions are held only by men because of our religious belief? How's that discriminatory? Am I saying you can hold no position within the church? But you don't have a right. It's a church. And the church's belief system says that only men can hold leadership positions within the church. How is that discriminatory? I'm not denying them anything that they could have a right to just because of their vagina. That they have ovaries. Women are actually held in a position of esteem because they're the bringers of life. Men can't procreate. There's other verses, but we can talk about that, and that a woman's place within the household is equivalent to the man. It's just the church structure. So how am I discriminating against her in something that she's not allowed to hold according to religious belief? Now, if she was able to hold those offices and I just said, because you're a woman, you can't do it, but the religious doctrine given to us by God says you can't do this. Yes, there is. It's called God created the doctrine around it. Jesus. Okay, so there's this thing called the Trinity, okay? There's God. In Christianity, it's called the Trinity. God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus Christ. Separate, but same, okay? Referred to as the Father. All right? I'd totally be cool with a female pope. I don't give a shit. I don't think that there's biblical doctrine that supports a pope. So, but we're not going to get into that. The thing is that it's religious doctrine. Okay? There is, if they were eligible for those positions and I just said, oh, because you're a female, you can't do it because I don't want you to, that would be sexism. Exactly. Women can be teachers. They're just not leaders. They can be missionaries, treasurers, outreach, support. They're not meant to lead other men. That's it. And that's a religious doctrine. That's not sexism. And you need to separate the two. The God, Jesus, put forth the doctrine that women should not lead men. Their place is not to teach men. They can teach other women. They can teach the children. They're not to teach men. That's it. And only in the church. It's not that they're not supposed to teach them in regular life. It's none of that. It's literally just within the church. And that comes from God. That's not sexism. Sexism is between two people. God said they can't hold that position. We're just enforcing what? The structure, religious structure given to us by our God. We're not enforcing a personal belief or using personal discrimination. So there's interpersonal discrimination and there's systemic discrimination. And then there's what's called religious limitation. Okay? It is a limitation placed upon these offices that women cannot hold them according to godly or biblical decree. That's it. That's all, man. No, I'm saying separate difference between godly decree from sexism. Sexism is something that happens either in a system or between two people. And I used it as an example. I didn't say that it was end all be all. I said society talks about how society as a whole considers serving one another a positive thing, as do most religions. I think it's somewhere in the back of the Bible. It was me being facetious. No, church is not a system. Church is a belief. It is an organism. The church is in the people, not in buildings of stone or religious organizations. That's the book of Thomas. It's also in the book of Mark, and it's also stated in Luke. Exactly. The church is in Christ and in God, it's not some organization or system. It's a structured organism. It's autonomous. It just happens to have denominations. So we can talk about this. Well, we're going to get deep into what's called Calvinism, and I'm trying to keep it 10,000 foot, but I want to answer your questions, and I'll gladly have this conversation with you. But we can talk about it. So I believe in Calvinism, okay? And there's a thing called five-pillar Calvinism, and we can have a discussion around it and how it works and what it means and what the Reformation is and how that feeds into doctrine and how the doctrine of the church and the structure of the church is in the people and it is not an organization. And Tarkin's making the same points, right? So, and we're going to leave it there. Yes, John Calvin. Pure yogurt. Wouldn't it be discrimination if I were to say that black men can't be a priest because of my religious beliefs, which are based on an old book that states that? Okay. So again, it depends on how you want to define discrimination. Am I discriminating against them, or am I enforcing a belief within the church? Am I saying, oh, well, there's no one in the Bible that says that you, so no. So that's where faith comes in, right? John, J Builds. So, so no, pure yogurt. I don't think that would be racism. Racism means I'm discriminating against you because of the color of your skin because I want to, not because something says that you can't do this. A Mennonite was not allowed to be a leader in the church. A Levite, right? You know what a Levite is, right? The difference between a priest and a Levite. Do you understand how Levites worked? Or a Canaanite. Could Canaanites be part of the Jewish temple? Can Canaanites be a part of the Jewish temple? It's not racial discrimination. It's a religious limitation. Yes, Levites were priests. I just said that. You know the difference between Levites and priests? Followers of Levi? Well, I'm getting there, Tarkin. So could Canaanites become Levites? Were they allowed to? Could I just identify as a Levite because I wanted to? Christianity does not enforce sexual discrimination. It doesn't. Show me where it says that a woman is not equal to a man. It just says that they can't hold certain offices within the church, certain positions within the church. That's it. They're not to lead men. You can have a woman priest as long as she's not preaching and leading men. A woman is not supposed to lead men. They were given the gift of childbirth. But they're equal in the household. And they're equal amongst themselves, and they're equal in the household. They're just not allowed to hold a position of authority within the church. That's not sexism. That is a decree given forth by our God. It's not sexist. Now show me in Islam, in the Quran, where it says a woman can't drive a car. Show me where it says that a woman can't be out without a male escort. Show me where it says that a woman has to be covered from head to toe in a burqa. No, you won't find it. You'll find them in fatwas, which are from Muslim clerics, right? And imams that create fatwa, right? It's nowhere in their Bible. Now that's discrimination. You want to talk about that? That's discrimination, because it's not a biblical decree. It's not given by the God of that religion. It's people's personal interpretations in order to create women as subjects and as property. Women in Christianity are not in Christianity by the Bible and by religious biblical doctrine are not property. There's only one religion that does that, and two religions that I'm aware of that does that. And both of them have arranged marriage, and guess what? They're not Christian. You understand how, okay, so we're going to start this. You understand how canonization worked? So you do know how that worked, right? You know the Bible is separate books that come from different time periods. So let's talk about it. John, 1st and 2nd John. Do you know the origination of 1st and 2nd John? Tarkin, don't answer this question, please. Do you know the don't Google it. What's the origination of 1st and 2nd John? He was writing letters while he was imprisoned. Okay? So John the Baptist, right, was delivered unto a king's wife because she tricked him into basically executing him and putting his head on a platter, but we won't go there, okay? Now, let's talk about canonization and how that works. So a lot of transcripts were found in dumps or trash or other things like that, and were put together through canonization. There are a lot of books that were considered part of the Bible that aren't part of the Bible, that didn't survive canonization. You have to have multiple transcripts that you match up over time and were put together. But just because the Bible was written by the hand of man does not mean that it wasn't written by the receiving of the words of God, and that God didn't guide that hand. And again, that's faith, right? That's faith. And man has done a lot to skew religion over time to fit their own personal devious needs, such as having to pay for being forgiven in absolution in the Catholic Church. You used to pay money for that, which is nowhere to be found in the Bible. The Bible in it itself is not inherently sexist. And just because people have written a Bible doesn't mean that it's not God's word. And again, that's where you get into faith. Nothing is 100% absolute, but let me explain to you from a scientific and a data standpoint how I justify it. What in science disproves God? What in science disproves God? Okay, so we're talking about the Father. God doesn't speak directly to man. The Holy Spirit leads you in prayer. It's what guides you. It's part of what's called the Father. God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are three different separate things. They're not the same person or entity, but they're one being overall. I mean, they're one entity, not the same being. My apologies. Where's my proof? And so let's go back to faith. So faith is the belief in things you can't understand, but let's talk about it from a science. What in science disproves God? How do we know the things that we know as science aren't the building blocks of God? And God spoke to us in what's called an anthropomorphic way, right? So if we talk about anthropomorphism, right? So it's the same thing. We try to assign worldly attributes to a non-worldly deity, such as, can God create a rock that he can't lift, right? So that's called anthropomorphism. And that's fine. That's your personal choice, and I support your ability to choose your religious direction. But you're challenging me, and so I'm answering your questions, right? And because I feel confident enough in my faith that I can answer your questions, right? And I don't mind being challenged. And so I don't mind answering you these things. And you'll continue to challenge me, and I'm going to answer you as faithfully as I can and hold these conversations, because I think it's important that you should be able to take your belief systems being challenged and to take it in stride and also be open-minded. But it seems that it's only one way, but that's fine. I'm okay with it. But as a man of science, that's fine. So, but when we talk about anthropomorphism and arguments of tribulation, so if we talk about it from a form of science, how do you create a foundation of truth without Christianity or some form of religion? Okay. So the very concept of truth is impossible without God. The point of truth presupposes God. Yeah, I don't believe in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is an abomination. How is it not relevant now? Okay, let's talk about the Ten Commandments if it's not relevant now. Yeah. Do you believe in absolute truth? Okay, let's have this. Oh, if you want to go down this, we'll go down this, okay? So, first, why does truth presuppose God? Right? So, do you believe in absolute truth? That there is an absolute truth. There's something, there are things that are factually based, that are unquestionable. So John 8:32, Jesus says that truth is essential for freedom, right? And so define truth for me. What is truth? What's true? So if we use Webster's definition, are you cool with us using Webster's definition? Can we use Webster's definition of the truth, which is the definition for truth is the state of being the case, right? But that does that feel incomplete though? I think that feels a little incomplete. What case? What sort of thing can be true? Can a rock be true? Truth is a quality of propositions, right? It can't be possessed by a thing, right? It's the quality of a proposition. Can we go with that one? A rock can't be true, but the statement the rock is on a table can, right? So let's work on building a more useful definition of the word truth. A true definition. All right? And then I'll demonstrate for you that truth is impossible without some type of some sort of religious belief, okay? Specifically, this one will be specific to Christianity, right? So if we've seen that truth is basically the attribute of proposition, right? By definition, linguistic, right? Basically, they're statements that are made in a particular language. Doesn't matter what language, French, German, Greek, doesn't matter. Propositions are basically the function of language, right? Only to make sense if they work in the language they're in. Blah, 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 blah. So it makes sense, so let's say in English, right? The rock is on the table is true, but the rock flurberglobble table, doesn't make sense. It's nonsense in English, right? The collection of words doesn't follow the rules, and it's incomprehensible. So, therefore, such a proposition isn't a proposition. It makes no sense to ask whether it's true. So, the first criteria of truth is the proposition that accords with the rules of language, or else it's incomprehensible. All right. So next we get into truth and as it combines with logic, right? So for any proposition to be sensible or possible, it has to accord with the rules of logic. Can we agree on that? I'm pretty sure that most of us would agree. If something's not logical, it can't be true. So a logical proposition must not contradict itself, or else it cannot be true. Can we all agree on that? We're going to skip parts of this, okay? Because I don't think you have time to respond quick enough, right? So there's a thing called the law of identity, right? That something must refer to what it refers to. It must affirm the state of affairs or its opposite, right? Yeah, so we're going through all of it. Linguistic truth, right? And now we're going into, okay, we've defined linguistically that a statement has to be structured correctly or else it can't be true. Now we're going into truth and logic, right? We're getting there. We're building up. So it must affirm the state of affairs or its opposite, but not both, right? The law of the excluded middle, right? So that's, again, this is all science. I haven't dove into anything religious yet, okay? Again, that's where we're getting into, for it must be logical. It must match our observations. We're getting into it. I'm building up. We have to agree on the definition and that we can't just say something and it just be true, right? We just went through this. You're making the argument for me. I literally said just because I say something doesn't make it true, that it must be true from a grammatical standpoint and also from an observable standpoint. I'm not doing it with linguistics, pure. We have to build the building blocks. We have to agree on a definition and a structure before we can move into the rest of it. If we're not speaking the same language, then we're not having a conversation that's meaningful, right? So, logical laws govern all thought and language. They are what are called transcendentals. Oh my God. Transcendentals. Okay. Basically that they transcend any particular language or culture, right? No matter what language I say the rock is on the table in. If the rock is on the table, it's there. If it's not on the table, it's a lie and it's not true, right? It doesn't matter what language I do it in, right? Logical laws govern everything, including thought and language. No matter what the vocabulary, grammar, syntax, change language, the laws of logic are unchanging. Also, the laws of logic are immaterial, universal, and knowable, meaning observable. They're universal. No matter what, I can see the rock on the table. I can know the rock is on the table. Okay? And it's immaterial, meaning I need nothing to prove a truth if it's observable. Right? A proposition, no matter what in any language, that contradicts itself or violates logic cannot be meaningful, let alone true. Okay? Period. So, the second criterion for truth then is that a proposition accords with the laws of logic. It is coherent, meaning it is observable, you can see it's true, it's coherent, you can process it. Oh my God. Yeah, we're not using science as a basis of it. We're using observable physics. So physics and metaphysics, you know the difference? Physics is observable. If you can't observe it, it doesn't exist. Physics doesn't believe that you can mathematically prove something you can't observe. Mhm. All right. So, truth and reality is the next part, right? Yeah. Finally, we come to this, basically, so now there's the third criterion, right? That basically, this is one most people think of when they think of truth. A true proposition is one that describes the actual state of affairs. See how we made it here, guys? Describes the actual state of affairs. It affirms the real world is the way the real world actually is. Now, you're going to learn that chaos theory, okay, or the law of chaos, the idea of entropy, okay? So entropy exists in all systems, okay? And entropy eventually equals the heat death of the universe, but we're not going to go down that rail. We're going to keep it simple because I like to keep it simple and stupid. So I'm sorry we got way off, guys. I really want to have this debate here. So I apologize if this is way off of what you guys want to talk about tonight. But we're going to have a conversation about how I believe that truth has to be foundationally created within with religion. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. So we talk about basically truth and reality. That a true proposition is one that describes the actual state of affairs. If I say this, the rock is on the table and it's not on the table, that's not true, right? Truth must match reality. So what we say must match reality. And this, it is necessary to believe that there actually is such a thing as the real world. And we'll get to more on this in a minute, right? Therefore, the third criterion of truth is that it accords with reality. It is correspondent. So all three criteria presuppose God. We're gonna get there. So now that we know these things, we can now define the truth as the quality of a proposition that is comprehensible in terms of language, is coherent with regard to logic, and is correspondent to actual reality. Okay? So it makes logical sense, right? It matches the reality we observe, and it's describable linguistically. Okay? So, comprehensive. So, now we can move on to why truth presupposes God. This is the case because all three criterion individually require God in order to be meaningful or real. So, let's get into comprehensibility that presupposes God, right? So, how does language presuppose God? Let's talk about that. Language presupposes God because it assumes that minds are designed to communicate and understand ideas. The use of language assumes uniformity of nature. That goes against chaos theory. You have to have something that provides that structure. What provides structure in the universe to allow for that? Basically, the speaker and the hearer must believe that the words will mean the same thing in 5 seconds that they meant 5 seconds ago. Is will always mean is, and never is not. This requires a stability in the universe that can only be explained by the faithful, unchanging, and good of God. Period. There is no stabilizing force in science. There is no stabilizing force in the universe because it is entirely built off of entropy. Period. Scientifically, there is no stabilizing force that provides structure. Find it for me. I can tell you it doesn't exist because I operate off of these. What? No. I'm giving you modern. Have I quoted the Bible once? In this entire conversation, have I quoted the Bible once? Yeah, you can absolutely take those pictures of the using a telescope right now. Absolutely. Coherence. The next part presupposes God. For us to know anything is true requires stability in what is true. Excuse me. Guys, I have to take a quick break. There's someone downstairs that needs me to let them in. I apologize. I will be right back. I love this conversation, though. I'm appreciating it. So, you guys stick with me. We'll be right back. All right, so we are back. My apologies, guys. Sometimes people show up and I have to let them in. It happens. So, this comment. I still don't get what you mean by a stabilizing force. As far as I understood you, Cardboard, limit what can be true by what man can comprehend. Nope, that's not what I'm saying. I think that's useful to find true logic and truth. I find that something like that, even philosophically, you have to be able to question your assumed truths. Yeah, I agree that you can question your assumed truths. But you have to, for something to be able to be true, that requires stability in the universe. It means that something that you said 5 minutes ago means the same thing now. Something that was observable 5 minutes ago is still true from the state it was in 5 minutes ago. Stability is required. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's the whole point. God is true. God is real. And no, you can question whether or not, but there's no truth without some type of stabilizing force in the universe. You have to have structure for truth to exist. Am I, Tarkin? Am I talking gibberish here? Are you still there? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you hear me? No, it doesn't. You can question whether God is real, but you have to find some other way to have truth, a stabilizing force. What is the stabilizing force if it's not God or whatever you want to refer to it as? What is the stabilizing force that stops entropy in its tracks? You can't have a purely entropic system and have truth, because truth would be forever changing and never stable, therefore truth would never exist. Oh, Tarkin had to take off. Okay. All right. Broski. I don't think it limits my views. I know what I'm saying here. It's as simple as that for truth to exist, you have to have a stabilizing force that stops entropy, or else everything would be entropic and nothing would exist in truth. Mathematic formulas wouldn't exist. That equaled. So 2 plus 2 would equal 4, and the next minute it would equal 5. Stability has to exist. You need stability for things to work. If you had a purely entropic system, which is what modern science is built off of, okay, if you eliminate God, that's where it comes into play. So, example, time plus chance plus millions of years, right, somehow created the amount of species on the planet. That can't be explained mathematically. It's the level of impossibility and improbability of carbon-based life forms proliferating in such abundance and such differentiation is such a high in improbability that it would just it's infinite. Then that's fine, but show it to me. If you don't have a better answer, then you must assume that the one given. You can't say something isn't true if you don't have a better proof. I'm giving a presupposition that provides stability, provides the ability for advancement, allows for questioning, and allows for scientific truth. No, the biodiversity upon this planet, for it to have happened, stabilized, and been able to avoid elimination up to this point, the improbability of that is so exceptionally astronomically high that even modern science can't provide for it. It's actually one of the mysteries of modern data science. We cannot we cannot prove it. It is not even provable mathematically. It's an improvable system, and there's an entire complex algorithm around it that people have been trying to solve for over 100 years. It's an unsolvable math equation at the moment for it to outcome to a positive. So And again, you get into what's called faith. I have faith, but I also see signs that is true. I know that God's work upon my life and the probability of things happening that have happened with me and to me. Well, we'll see. But until you have a better answer, you can't say mine's not true. But correspondence presupposes God too. Unbelief in God makes belief in logic simply a matter of random subjective opinion, not possible. Logic presupposes God because it assumes that there are true, immaterial, and unchanging, universal, and knowable laws that govern thought, speech, and the environmental world around us. If you believe in God, then it's easy to believe why the universe would be governed by such laws. Otherwise, how do they come into existence? How do they just be? How do it be what it is? The, so, can an atheist affirm belief in logic? Of course. Atheists do this all the time. The question is, can they do it consistently? No. Okay. So we're talking about consistency. Belief in logic isn't rational. By believing in logic, you're merely dancing around an ideal. A mind evolved by chance could never step outside itself to analyze its own conclusions. Okay? Including its conclusions about logic. On such a worldview, there is no reason to believe in logic. It's very simple. You have to have transcendental thoughts to be able to comprehend your own existence. Okay, so let's go into the correspondence that presupposes God. Belief in reality presupposes God. That there is a state of affairs external to one's own mind, and that the world is objectively out there. The world is intelligible, it's capable of being known. This presupposes that one's mind is able to know something about the external world in order to be able to create correspondent propositions about the world and create truth. The human mind must also correspond to the world in such a way that is knowable and that the world is possible, and conclusions about the world may be correct. So the Bible teaches that God created man in his image with the ability to study the world and gain true knowledge from it. See the verses basically that relate to intelligibility of nature. Without God, there's no reason to believe this. What other reason is there to believe this? But let's say the atheist problem with truth, right? However you look at it, truth presupposes God. Atheists have a huge problem. This brings us back to basically all these Twitter discussions that happen all the time, where people deny absolute truth, right? To affirm the existence of truth is to presuppose the existence of God and that truth of what the Bible teaches about God and the world and humanity. On the other hand, to deny truth is deny the possibility of saying anything is true. This also precludes anyone from saying that it is true that God does not exist. There is no truth, then the fundamental proposition of atheism, God does not exist, cannot be true. It's real simple. I'll send you all the papers on it. It's very, very simple. Let me gather this together. when we talk about this, this was the German study. So Wittgenstein and Kierkegaard, right? They talked about objectively there is no truth, right? But without truth, there is no science, right? There is no. I mean, there's a man who's much better at this than I am, but it, no, I mean, but what if evolution is just God's working his way? We don't know if 7 days was 7 days to him or 7 days to us. Again, anthropomorphism. Do I believe in the Old Testament? I believe it was replaced. And I believe it's unreliable, though referential. Judaic beliefs were manipulated by the Levites. So you're saying that laws don't exist in science? The law of gravity is could possibly somehow not be true? You're telling me that that Newton's laws aren't laws? So there's no absolute truth. Then how can we know anything's true? If there is no truth, if there's only belief, there's no absolute truth, then how can you know anything is real? Were they? You sure about that? Pretty sure that the law of entropy still exists. I'm pretty sure. Exactly. So you're going with the Wittgenstein and Kierkegaard. There objectively is no truth. I refuse to live in existence where that is. Okay. So Einstein's theory of gravity, you're right, but he didn't disprove all of Newton's laws. I'm talking about the law of velocity. Object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon it by an opposing and relative force, which was actually backed up by E equals mc squared. So I mean, in Einstein's general relativity, that both space and time are distorted by the presence of mass, which means that if you have enough mass that you can create warp drives, right? Like, I believe in all that. I know that to be fact. You can literally see temporal distortion. If something's large enough, time moves slower. It's observable, right? It's science. But this has been fun, y'all. I appreciate it. We got way off topic. We will cover many, many other things later, but we are going to wrap this up tonight. I appreciate and love all of you guys. We'll continue this conversation in Discord. Make sure you join our Discord. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. I appreciate all of you. And we are going to have a good night. Peace.
In my mind, there's a space where you used to be.